titled, Notebooking, Truly, This Was the End of the Good Times, as Messiaen did it, Quartet for the End of Time. Whiskey and Peaches, what man had fucked us into so much debt? David Cameron is a pie, get to fuck, I graduate when I want, Tinsel mimics the effect of ice badly, anyone who sings the juncture can fucking leave it. Spilled entrails into a light. If we ferry enough dead to their mouths, they'll suddenly stop eating. There is evil in this world, no shadow was cast on it. The tactical mistake was giving the fascists the pleasure of rebellion, yet they've only won when they've been in monasteries. If, as Don says, no skyscraper stays vertical forever, what rod can settle like a cirrus? And while huddled under thunder was being terrifying, and while took a walk, it disappeared in the skies over Cambridgeshire. All acts of sabotage came preemptively forgiven. James Butler fucked me in a dream. I was still feeling it when the new state interrupted us. Arts Council funding. Poets are integral to state building, though not its authority. There we make the first mistake, the mother of necessity. If alternate media is successful, we might push the papers to suicide. A decade on squinting, it's done now. The dead are fucking outraged. They don't need our help, we need theirs. Okay, some shorter poems. All this came out on Ludd Gang, which is the kind of poetry magazine of the Poets Hardship Fund, and really worthwhile checking out and contributing. It's amazing, and it's one of the most optimistic things I've seen in poetry ever. Okay, documentary. No time to stew over my depressed lentils. The house follows an infinite self-rules, and I'm drinking up the sunlight. Could you describe the fountain as a contingent structure, an occasional piece of furniture, bubbling as it does? We split open our costs or ends. In Rome, you can drink in every public square for free. In Britain, you have to ask at the shops, and only if you're dying of thirst. You get dressed down by the shop attendant. You're fully dependent on their generosity. You say thanks, no money is exchanged. You shunt your body back into a full view of the street and quickly forget about this. Satiety engenders a different kind of memory. You could definitely forgive this. If you study symmetry long enough, you eventually meet the boss, and I'd rather not. Okay, now, so I'm from Venezuela, and this is one of the first poems I kind of felt happy writing about my home country. Which is what happens when you try to open yourself up to the actual collectivity of one's own personal experiences and the socialist revolution happening there and all that stuff. And obviously it's very partial, but it is, I feel I did something. Let's see. The death of Chavez. The current situation is my country's poetry has long sought to disappear into the vast spherical night and the shades of its static demolition. The time-maddened oil, that's what I admire, to run the machines and gasoline with a cleanliness like war, as if it were a style, everything a style. Now I wear a gun. We made a strong and assertive start, a flash of tranquility passing between the eyes. The homes of our childhood are on fire. Revolutionary biography still means doing without position, mostly, meaningfully, maneuvering on hostile air. Our guerrillas were bombarded by British Canberras, decisively defeated by the end of the 60s. At school, too lurid to escape attention while I was keeping score of. The hinge of the century coming into life. Syndicalists, communists, students end up in prison at times and free elsewhere. In complete boredom, I start writing with a sliver of saliva on the pen, a face cognate with another face, how not to be caught in it. A National Guard once stood over a classmate, pelted his legs with buckshot and sliced damp covered the windows of my language. A strange house, a divine distance, foaming the blow against my head. Distance means having been agreed to it. The synthetic capacity of the lived street, knelt down with the ruminants, children, shoppers, bones, psychiatric sun will be down your throat, the clicking of a motorbike, a scalpel directly to a grid. The city has an overground archaeology, Scratch. I only have the age I'm always repeating. Our cities are barely cities, suspensions of governance. The only time I felt anarchic was with the windows down, the smell of gas and piss streaming through our vehicles, the military parade somewhere else. The first poetry came through the mirrors, the sentence grasp, held on, finished. Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'll read some sonnets for Hooch. It's like a collab volume with two other, my friends Kyle and Maria, who are here tonight, and we'll read from this. This sonnet is about projecting myself into Maria's hometown in Ayrshire, kind of astral projection. And that town is called Mabel, and all the place names are real. Okay, it's called Stage Fright Sonnet. Stand on the show, superluminal wound, you could say a coronagraph. This is your balance of possibilities. It's only jello bolted on rooftops and ceilings. Okay, so far so good. Slutty Mabel, the affordance of ground-level memory. Who'd have thought we'd still be thinking of the first times presented on stage, wearing terror and secret anticipation. Everyone has a particularly dismal and favorite crossroads. I think I've met you air to air. There is a place called Cassilis Hotel. I say, I only have so much cash on me. When you extend pleasure by giving it more words, butterfly stroke, forgotten blood, exhaustion dream, I save this for you. Okay, more sonnets. Okay, this is called The Golden Chain, Catena Aura. What's a fucking sonnet? Sonnet, I hate you more than the telephone or the internet. I come out, sing my little song, and weave the tinier motif on my forehead. Everyone stares and laughs. I cannot write a sonnet for shit, or say there is something about time I can't know, since knowing contains a catalogue of edges. Egress, sonnet, you are so small, and I know so much more than you do. You lord over me like a prince with a secret power of speech. And then the time runs out. I forget I was bound and feel the grazing burn of the night's activity, like new veins on top of old ones, fading as desire appears. Okay, yeah. This is called Shortest Night, written on the summer solstice. It's a summer edition. Shortest Night. A hollowing out, a foot hollow, oh we lied and lied about the seasons. The sound changing, algorithmic surveillance picks up monthly noise, false positive dawns. It's never dawn, just the backlight skimming the atmosphere, and holography causing birdsong, halo, air sickness, my floating error and graphene of I. When I find you, we, trimming, looking for more, the instruction of the sonnet is broken brevity, a sun net cutting over unfinished, which is to say negative space, we write it all. Shortest night, approaching the asymptote, and tropical fusing sunbird on carbon tracing paper. One more. And we did a Control F on this manuscript, and there's 40 instances of the word dream. So it's about napping in the summer, and this is one of them. This is kind of meta about this. Still in space. There is a sonnet in which the dreams of everyone else's sonnets are inscribed into it, so it becomes the hyper sonnet, a flower collection, a lifetime on tape, the variable length session in the collective spit. A book that as you read it, images take leave from dreams and aphantases of proliferative speaking, a leak of thermal balance and languid after some trace of historical bedtime. I've had dreams where I'm actually the pencil. I want to send you a letter and tell you how stupid it looks when I bilocate, levitate, or cast out demons, though I don't think I'd be totally honest with it. The missing imperative is to write it as it was. I will everything into existence, and then I'm seared as it exists. Oh, to be as attractive as one is mundane, risking some newest sincerity, split it between days. Okay. Quite flustering to get. to get clapped. Right. Okay. I've been writing monthly long poems, and I can only read excerpts from them because of time. I'll read an excerpt from February and then from January. February. February is mostly about being on Zoom, so there's a bit of that. Okay. February is for desire, the catastrophized inner landscape, the generality of objects. You're regularly carrying first blossoms they offered you. Players will often, repeatedly loop through the same branching point in search of an experience, not identical to itself, or prosody, a constitutional aporia, or amazement. The goal is not to fall down and remain down, for consonance, what kids are playing, while I'm forgetting in the snow, packed and brittle. It gets harder to cover the windows. Narrative is what happens when you scribble things out and only contingently backspace. In a world of contingency, trauma in the detritus. My hometown, circa 2008, a stranger nudged aside by vehicles. A cardboard fold covers the face, a materialist. That's how I like to remember it. This was going to be my dissertation on translation. The translators of the Septuagint, all 77 of them, locked in individual cells until God forces them to produce an identical document, a lot more reassuring than the Tower of Babel, whatever. A return to unity, the one, God speak in isolated experiments. Last night, the Venezuelan poet Luis Moreno Villamediana read at a panel hosted by Brooklyn Braille in the USA. A sympathetic audience, his voice kept cutting out, all our faces in suspension. Just one fucking thing after the other, he sobs, over fuel and electricity shortages. He reads in Spanish, then his own translations of himself in English, and it kept dropping out. We turned our cameras off, and he read to all the black spaces, all these negative spaces, to help him finish the poem. It was about border guards and being interrogated. One's only reply is, I'm a bag of bones, iced, frozen before another's command. There cannot be a lyric position, and transaction between the self and outside is impermissible by power. You just listen and fuck that. Luis was paid more for this reading than he earns in a month of teaching, and his internet connection completely fucked it. Some panelists disclosed their visas were soon to expire. They were in different stages of seeking asylum, or appealing, or marrying, or moving elsewhere again, not asking for help, but just revealing how brutal in light of circumstance. Writing it like this is worse than the transparency of numbers. 6 millones afuera. On the 101st day of the revolution, all that was a demand ended at the border. La intemperie swallowed them on the Andean mountain pass, the Gulf of Paria, raped in Buenos Aires, no justification given. We were as dead as the landscape to the people who crossed it. That night I dream in another language, in fragments. Forget about it. Write about the snow and the hedges, who the president is as a function and a geometry. Okay, my last poem is the very ending of the one I wrote in January. It's based on snowy walks, when it really snowed for a couple of weeks, if anyone has that memory. January. Eventually, I feel like I'm writing the same poem again, in a sour beginning. My second year of snow, my legs gathered under me. I sat optimistically at the lecture, the walk home in the mid-afternoon. It beckons me over the common, the stray reaching you. One is ever oneself, and you is imagined as collateral. And we both believe the world was an egg, and any cracking from the inside would be dramatic. To assimilate work, no division between the work and its loss, the possibility of raising a power between us which does not kill, and dodging incipient sacrifices. At some point our fetishes become justifications, and then what, when they're wrong? Standing slight at the project's terminus, I scratch grief on its snowy surface. I put these leaves in my mouth. My name, the ice flow, snaps in the aching monochrome, and an echo grows massive, does not return its category. The color sinks down the river. Black route through the day gets filled with a graceless darker white, while the sun declines, steadily moving between buildings. Stoppage seeping the air, my pen hits the slush, and headphones go with the dimming, and wool curls in the pile. None of this proper to memory, but inevitable. Something about how the cars take longer to place on children now. The book is fully blank. I couldn't call it a dream, but its atmospheric creep hails me through slits where small light gathers. I go home, ask these questions, be it latency, is a husk or a style. That language is not spoken here. Sporting the big bad month, listen to the last position of the jaw being pulled out of the snow, and you see its mother, and its mother sees you. The words were nothing, then the joggers repair the obstructions, tossing to another page, past the water carrier being sketched above these nights. Does it stutter? The space of introspection gets filled with birds, and rest unknowing, and in the language of information, they invent pretexts. This is no place, a gloss or sex or a demonstration, buoying an escape, weightless. Lyric means whatever the fuck we need, take everything. The crisis was not noticing. I make my mistakes. I miss the founding assembly. Something has burned, or otherwise the dreaming, the geometry of coastline, an infinite recession, and the phone gathers together paths, and upon encountering the moon, so desperate can become desires for desires. The spheres are making unbearable noise, questing at the light densely falling, books for loving and food for lust. Hasten to say nothing ends, prescription runs to the end of lockdown. Then the shattered play, the wastage and salvaging of everything, rending both reparative and militant. Does your skin end up elsewhere? Without meaning much, I beg the thought awake. It's deep with midwinter, and the trees are starting to bud. The flowers before the leaves, budding before eating, first fruits of winter. Difficult to make a meaning of metabolism, only negativity, prosecuting but not accusing, nearly close to one's affinities. I seek this essay on activity. Every longing is a prayer, underneath perception. Every solipsistic weather will pass. On the other side, it becomes elementary possessions. A name, my dress, a breath, the reasons then. Thank you.